Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of Shouting into the Void. It's special because we're at the end of David Tennant's era in Doctor Who. Madness.
We're here at last.
I'm shocked that we're here. It seems to have
The
just come out of
end
nowhere.
of Russell T Davies. He will never return to
Forever.
Doctor
Yep.
Who.
He's not coming
We're
back.
we're done. I can't
Yeah.
believe we're done, and we never ever are going to talk about any of his
No.
scripts ever again.
Get over it, kids. He's not. What's that? Oh, he's coming back. Sorry.
Wait, what?
Sorry.
Oh my
Sorry.
god!
News just in. Yes, if you've not seen these videos before, myself and Liam, we go through episodes of Doctor Who from 2005 onwards, the new Who era of Doctor Who. As you could probably tell, because we're at the end of David Tennant's run, we have successfully watched 4 and a bit series of the show. And yeah, last week we obviously covered The End of Time Part 1. And this week we're covering The End of Time Part 2. The Master is everyone on Earth. The Time Lords are trying to figure out how they can come back. And yeah, David Tennant's about to die. Which is excellent, as always.
Not in real
So,
life.
I mean, probably not. Hopefully not in real life.
I hope not, because that'd be quite depressing.
Yeah, hopefully you've not just jinxed it. Touching wood. Touching wood.
I'm just going to check Twitter quickly.
please, don't
No,
want to
he's
panic.
fine. He's fine. He's fine.
Whew. Dodged a bullet there.
Oh, well, let's hope he did. Otherwise,
Oh yeah, that's true. But yes, this is his very last episode, his last proper episode. Obviously, he comes back in the 50th special, but that's quite a way away at the moment. So we'll get right into it. Normally we do 3 positives and 3 negatives. But what did you think of the episode overall, especially compared to how you felt last week?
yes. It probably didn't go without noticing. Wasn't a huge fan of part one. There was a lot of elements I didn't like in it. Thankfully, I can't say the same for part two because I really bloody liked it.
Yay!
I do think part one is what really lets this story down for me, which is kind of what I assumed. I always thought I preferred part two a lot more, and I do. It's very good. I think quite rightfully very character driven. So there's a lot of good stuff there with that. Very emotional at times. I think it's a very satisfying conclusion to Ten's run, the era as a whole. A little like farewell for a lot of the characters that we've met over the years. Kind of a satisfying kind of wrapping up of the story, I think, for the most part. And yeah, just a jolly good time. And considering it's like 70 something minutes, I think it does use it effectively to like wrap up an entire era of the show. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was very, very good.
Good. I also really enjoyed it. Obviously, definitely better than last week.
Of course you did.
As
Two
you
days.
mentioned. Yes, well, exactly. And yeah, I think there are still some issues with it. Perhaps they're the same issues that were present last week, but we'll come on to that. And most, some of the things that are good this week are also the things that were good last week, because the cast doesn't really change. But I think in this one, at least, the plot definitely takes a big left turn into this is a bit too extreme now. What's going on here? But hey, that's fine. I quite like it. So as always, we start with our positives first. And I'll hit my first one out the park. David Tennant. Because he is
What?
the best boy.
What a surprise.
He's the best boy. He again, with this being his final episode, you can really tell he's holding no punches. He's by far the standout of this episode. Whether that's him talking to Wilf in the spaceship, whether that's him talking to Wilf when he's about to die, whether that's him talking to Wilf at the end. He talks to other characters, which is also good. But and
Does
then
he?
obviously, obviously his whole regeneration sequence I really like. And I just think he gives it all for this one. And for his whole tenure, I don't think he's necessarily put in a poor performance. There are times where he's been sidelined or overshadowed by other roles, which I think we've discussed previously. But I think this whole episode, I think, sums up how his tenure sort of went, where it's, big, loud, and brilliantly performed. And yeah, I think obviously it's a loss to the show to lose that kind of actor, but we get plenty of good and on the same level actors moving forwards, which is obviously all you want to see. So yeah, I think he's just the best part of this. Not the only best part, but one of the best parts. So what's your first positive?
Well, I'll go for my third one because it kind of ties into that anyway. Because I kind of cheated, and I've just put powerhouse performances.
Boo!
Namely, hey, don't boo me, I'm right.
So your one is going to be my 3. I think is how we're gonna go from here.
Well, it happens. That's what this format leans itself into. A bit of chaos. Why not?
Yep.
It's happened before. Anyway, but yeah, I just didn't want to just talk about some actors, so I just put them all in one.
Sure.
But the ones I highlighted were David Tennant, Bernard Cribbins, and Timothy Dalton in particular were my big highlights.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed all of them. Timothy Dalton scares me. I think if I met him in real life, he would terrify me. I will not die. No. Okay.
Please, I'm sorry.
You'll never die, Timothy. I'll make sure that happens. Unless I check Twitter now and Timothy Dalton's died, but I don't think that's going to be the case. But yeah, he I think he has such a great presence, considering he doesn't really have that much screen time to work with. He really does command every word he's given, mainly because he spits. But yeah, I think he's just a very ruthless kind of new interpretation of Rassilon from what we saw in the Five Doctors, if you've seen the Five Doctors. And yeah, he's fantastic. And he's just such a good actor. And I think he's such a big name to get for the show, certainly at the time. So I really did enjoy what he brought to the scene as, like, I guess, the ultimate villain of this story by the end. So I really enjoyed him. I mean, my big thing in the last episode that I really enjoyed was the Doctors and Wills relationship and everything to do with them. That kind of leans itself into this one as well. I really enjoyed all their scenes. David Tennant and Bernard Cribbins are just such a good duo together. They really gave it their all. The scene where Will's like, "I don't want you to die. You're the most wonderful man." Every fucking time, Bernard Cribbins, how dare you? So yeah, that's just such a powerful scene in itself, and powerful performances from Bernard and David there. And yeah, you can tell this is David's last one because he is just putting his all into it. His old David Tennessee. Yes. So yeah, it's oh god, why did I do that? But yeah, he's just phenomenal from start to finish here. Lays it all out on the line. When he gets mad, he gets mad. When he gets sad, he gets sad. He's a sad boy and an angry boy. And he pulls that off so well. Even if I'm not like the biggest fan of how Ten handles the regeneration and snaps at will for the most part, you can understand it. And David Tennant sells the hell out of it. So yeah, I think it's in itself, it's going to feel like momentous and epic, this whole episode, because it's, the 10th Doctor's last one, it's David Tennant's last one and all of that. But I think the actors kind of took what was already kind of a monumental thing with the script and just made it even more epic with their performances. They didn't have to go as hard as they did, and it still would have been, a really great kind of whole deal. But all of them, and those three in particular, I think really did a fantastic job.
Yep, I think that's fair enough. He really put his whole Bernard Cribbins into this.
You can't say that.
Timothy Dalton. Does that work?
God, there's something about Dalton.
Oh God! Well, you did this. You started.
Oh no! I did start it, but now I'm ending it.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But it'll come back again because John Sim really put his whole John Simmersy into this, and I really enjoyed it.
God's sake.
Yeah, John Sim is my second positive because I think, sort of again with last week, I think he really sells the performance. I know we say what we want about his zappy hands, but at least that's not used to an extreme in this week. The fact that he effectively plays 20 different versions of himself in this episode. I mean, they're all the same master, but they're all slightly different. I appreciate that he stood in all those different clothing and did all these different films just for some of them just to appear at the bottom of a screen and just sort of sit there. I think that takes a lot of commitment to the role. And then just the whole scene of him convincing the Doctor that not to shoot him, to shoot the president, and then the way he flip flops from "please don't kill me" to "yes, kill him" to "oh, please don't kill me," I think is great. And the fact that he saves, or the Master saves the Doctor in the end with his sort of getting his redemption and his revenge on the Time Lords for sort of setting him up to be this. And it's probably a little bit more in depth there as well, because obviously they brought him back to life to fight in the Time War. So there's probably all sorts of depth that he's, super angry about. And I just think it all comes out there. And who knows what happens when they got back to Gallifrey. Clearly neither of them died. Because both Rassilon and the Master come back. Even John Sims' Master come back at some point. So who knows? Maybe they'll do a big finish where there's the Master on Gallifrey or something. I don't know.
I know they do mention there's something in the Doctor Falls when they talk about like what happened to him, but they could do like a big finishy thing, couldn't they?
Yeah, or a book or a comic if it's not already been done. I'm sure there's plenty of space to work around it. But yeah, I think he just gives, as you sort of alluded to, I think he's one of the powerhouse performances in this as well. There are four standout performances in this.
Yeah,
David
they're the
Tennant,
core
John
four.
Sim, Bernard Cribbins, and Timothy Dalton. I think are all excellent, and they all carry this episode. And they all play their parts very well. So what is your first/second positive?
Yes, my first/second is the he will knock 4 times reveal, that whole scene.
Yep.
I love it. I hate the setup with all my being, but yeah, and they also threw in another prophecy character as one last fuck you to me personally.
I mean, I thought that when I saw it, but I thought at least it makes sense as they're Time Lords because they can look through time. I was like,
yeah, but again, she didn't need to be in it.
I'd be more annoyed at the Ood that could see through time than the Time Lords that could see through time.
Like, they could have said, "This is our plan. Let's carry it out." But then we also have this screaming woman for 2 scenes for no reason. But it's fine. Whatever. She's dead now. But yeah, I love the reveal of it. I think it's such a satisfying kind of conclusion to that, just because it's made so personal by it being Wilf. Every time you watch it and you see him like help that guy out of the thing, like, bitch, don't do it. And even the Doctor's like, no, let that random man die, Wilf, don't do that. So you have that setup shot there already, and when everything then plays out with Rassilon and all the Time Lords and the Master, you almost kind of forget about it. And then the Doctor's like, hooray, I live. I live to fight another day. I escaped. I fell through this skylight and I got rid of my race and I'm fine. And then, like, Wilf, have a bit of class and just knock 3 times or something. Let's change it up. But as soon as he taps on the glass and the music goes, oh shit, and David Tennant's face just drops. Oh, it's so good when you kind of realize and piece the things all together.
And you see Wilf in like the blurred background as it
oh my god, it was him. It was him. I love that kind of death sentence moment. I think it's such a cool reveal. A really powerful thing, especially because it's a character that I think is universally just loved and adored. I don't think you would meet anyone who doesn't like Wilf.
And if you do, don't trust them.
If you do, block them on social media and just cut ties with them entirely.
Yep.
But so to put a character like that in that position, and he's the one indirectly, of course, causes the death of Ten, is such a huge deal, and I think a really kind of massive payoff to not only just bring Wilf back for his 2-parter anyway, and like giving him that kind of final nail in the coffin for the Doctor, but it's just a really cool moment. And I remember like that got a gasp from our household when we watched that on New Year's Day, because you have all this speculation and you think, oh, it's going to be the Master, or maybe it'll be Rassilon, it'll be the Time Lords, something's going to happen. just because the one core ally that the Doctor has in this whole story is Wilf. The fact that he's then the one that kind of gets him killed at the end is just extra sad. So I love that reveal. I think it's so brilliantly done.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And that, along with the Doctor's reaction to it, the sort of pure anger and heartbreak to it, because although he's saying, "Oh yeah, I'll leave you there," you know that he's not going to do it.
He's not going to do it, no.
Trying to come to terms with sort of that massive high to then, oh fuck, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to have to do it." I think it's all, the last half an hour of this episode is just incredible TV, I think.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough. My third positive, although, I feel very undermined with your third positive, but my third positive is Bernard Cribbins.
Good.
I do have additional positives as well.
Yeah, but they're not as good.
No,
I
was like, oh yeah, these three are the best of the episode. You're like, all of them are one.
This is the easiest positives I've ever had to come up with. Oh yeah, very good. And there's me like combining them all. I just wanted to praise more than just the actors. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's fair enough, and I can't really say much about Bernard Cribbins that we haven't already said so far. Just that he's excellent in this. He's excellent in the role. I think he's so like emotional with his face. I don't know whether it's because he's an old man and that plays a part in it.
But, that certainly helps. I can't stand watching old men cry.
No, and it's heartbreaking, and you can see he's almost relatable to the Doctor because he's an old man and what he's been through, and the Doctor's been through similar things, although on a larger scale. There's still that sense of sort of relatability between the two of them.
He's 93 now.
I know, he is very old. Well, he was like in his 80s when he filmed this.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So yeah, it's ridiculous that he could even do this. This labor intensive episode.
How did you even?
I know. And I think he's also great. You can see he's having a lot of fun when he's shooting the missiles and all that kind of stuff.
That's so wholesome, yeah.
I just think he's really a standout, and I'm glad that they picked this person. If they were gonna pick anyone to bring back, I think this was the right choice because he doesn't overshadow, I think, the rest of the episode in the way that a returning companion might have.
Yes.
Which I also think helps a lot, and it also gives him a lot of room to play with and a lot of scenes to steal when he wants to. But then he can fade into the background when he needs to. And obviously, when he's trying to convince the Doctor just to leave him and or to take his gun, and I think there's just so much good acting on show in this episode, and I think he is one of the standouts for it. And it's a shame he's never come back, but there's never been a way to bring him back. But who knows? Who knows? He's the 14th Doctor, so.
Imagine. 92-year-old Bernard Cribbins is.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
The 14th Doctor for an episode.
Yeah. But yes, that's my third positive. I do have some others that we'll go on to in a minute. But what is your second/third positive?
Yes, second/third is the farewell tour, is what I've called it. So basically, the last half an hour of the episode where he kind of goes off and gets his reward and visits all the previous companions that we've seen across this era. I know a lot of people have issue with it and say, "Oh, it takes up half the episode is just him saying about." It's the end of it's literally the end of an era, you fools.
It's a TV event, this one, and people would have been annoyed
if it was like 45 minutes or an hour long. I'd be like, okay, that's kind of fair enough because then they just have to kind of Dex knack another story even more and wrap it up very quickly, and it does wrap up quickly. But it's 72 minutes. So I think they have more than enough time justified to do it and do it the way they did. It's kind of a final farewell for so many of these characters. I think it's earned after like 4 and a bit years building up to it. I think it's a nice kind of tying the bow on a really strong return for the show after years away. A little nod to all the characters that people have kind of come to love over the years. I think it's just nice to really, really show how the Doctor's kind of helped all these people and what's become of them. And it gives a sense of closure to people who, for so many people watching, Rose would have been their favorite companion. Martha would have been their favorite companion. Donna would have been their favorite companion. Jack would have been their favorite companion. So to get a chance to glimpse all of them and see things kind of turn out all right for them, or in like Rosa's case, if she's already got that happy ending where we've seen that, we can kind of see, before it even starts, which I thought was a nice touch. So yeah, I really did enjoy, one last hurrah for all these characters and just the era in general. A nice kind of a pat on the back for everyone. You did good. Look at all these people. Scenes like with Verity, the author, he's obviously Jessica Hines from the two-part Family of Blood thing. Just little moments like that. It's just like the little nods to people who have been watching it, for the years since it came back. It just feels very earned to me. I think it's a very emotional kind of sequence. Particular highlights is, it's been like gift and memes to death is when Wilf like salutes the Doctor and waves him goodbye, but it's just so emotional. And I think my favorite moment in the whole thing is when he like borrows some money from Donna's dad in the past to like get a lottery ticket that means they're going to be hella rich. I think that's a really sweet scene. And so Jacqueline King, who plays Sylvia, I think she's fantastic in that, like the little reaction to that. Very emotional. There's such bit of sweetness knowing that it's going to be the last time you just see so many of them, and like we can't really have like a final moment with the Doctor and Donna's goodbye because she can't remember him, although if she did, it's just she knocks out all the masters and she's fine anyway. But we'll get onto that. But I did really enjoy the send off for all these characters, and a nice rounding up of a very strong era.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think it does add a sense of closure, and I think that's probably the best way they could do it, handing over to a showrunner, to a new showrunner. And I think probably it helped Matt Smith's season get off to as good as it did, because there wasn't that kind of that hangover of what there was.
There's no baggage,
and it's not as if every regeneration since hasn't done the same thing, not to the same extent, but that's also because following Doctors haven't necessarily had that kind of character list of companions. If you think of Matt Smith, you've definitely got Amy and Rory and Clara and River. I don't think he sees River in his last ones, but he sees Amy, obviously, in his little memory thing, and Clara's obviously there. And naturally, that story doesn't lend itself to, I'm going to go and see everyone, because that's not how it works. Although, it's implied, isn't it, in like series 6 that he goes off and does and sees people or whatever after he sees James Corden for the second time. It's like, I'm going to go see you. Yeah, that's before he then appears in the start of series 6 in the gets shot by the spaceman.
Yeah.
So it's all implied there, and Peter Capaldi obviously then sees Bill, Nardo, and Clara. Those are his three. Again, the other one he doesn't really see is probably River Song, but that little moment between them is solved before series 10 starts, I think. So I think everyone gets their own version of this, and just because it's long for the 10th Doctor doesn't mean it's bad. Chris Eccleston could do it because he really only had Rose as a companion that he would have liked. He's not going back to see Adam, is he? So
not yet.
No.
Not until the 60th anniversary.
Yeah, could you imagine? He's the 40th. No.
Yeah, it's just because I think modern Doctor Who is just so different. I think if TV was the way it was in the classic series, they would have done this for the Doctor's final story. I mean, Peter Davison kind of gets a very similar thing when he like sees all his companions flashing before him and stuff. They got everyone back for a special cameo for his. So there is precedent for it, and I appreciate it. I think it's good to kind of celebrate the characters been and gone.
Yeah, and it does add that sense of closure, and it does sort of add to the theory that Journey's End and the Stolen Earth should have been the finale, because that's when everyone did go off and they all had the reunion stuff. But then it still leaves little strands everywhere, and that the showrunner could pick up. And I mean, a future showrunner could obviously pick up these strands, but if they're left there, they're left with a nice. That's how they went. That's how they were finished.
Yeah.
You don't need to see any more, which I do appreciate. That's one of my external positives. Sort of my other ones are just the use of the Time Lords in this. I think they're great. I just think the opening shot of seeing Gallifrey and the Citadel sort of in flames and under attack is great.
We'll never see that again.
Nope, not for another 10 years, something like that. But yeah, I think it's just anything on Gallifrey I really like. I know a lot of people are like, oh, they're boring and in robes and they just sit around. I'm like, I don't care. It's cool. It adds to the mythology of everything. I think, sure, you could complain about the fact that, they're just sat in a black room, and I think that's a lesson that's learnt for the 50th, where they sort of put them in that proper room rather than just a void. But budgets, if you have to cut back something.
They went to Dubai, so you get a black room.
Exactly. That's what happens when you get Planet of the Dead. You get black room. But yeah, I think they were great in it. I think they were a threat, and you felt that they were a threat. You sort of got the impression that they were these all powerful beings that if they came back, it would just absolutely wreck shit. But luckily they didn't. Luckily it got stopped. I also like the regeneration scene because I think everything in that sequence is great, from the music to David's last words to the regeneration to the exploding TARDIS, to Matt Smith's introduction and sort of his first line. I think is great, to him spitting on the TARDIS. I think it's all excellent.
I didn't notice that.
No,
I was trying to look out for it. I didn't.
Oh.
I've never spotted it until I read about it, and then you messaged me about it.
Every time.
I've never noticed. I need to watch that. I need to take a moment.
I would recommend anyone watching this, go and watch that episode and watch right at the end, just as he's like, I'm crashing, and then he's got to do all the things. He goes, and then it goes back to.
Okay, I thought it was earlier than that. That's probably why I've missed it.
No. It's just when he's trying to pilot the TARDIS.
It's on me.
Yeah, literally. So everything from him stumbling back to the TARDIS to Matt Smith appearing, I think is excellent. And then also the standoff between the Time Lords, the Doctor and the Master, where he's flicking between who to shoot and where to shoot, and his mum, obviously now with the Timeless Children, his mum is sort of directs him into the way forwards. But you can still say,
get her.
Yeah, get her. But you can still say it. You can still say it's his mum because maybe he was raised by this woman, whatever. And yeah, I think there's so many good moments in this that really, most of it. I say most, not all. Most of it is very good in this episode. So have you got any other positive notes you want to hit on?
Let's have a look. I really liked the Regeneration scene as well. This is kind of a retroactive thing that I enjoy because it's just the 11th Doctor appears and I'm like, yay, my boy.
Yeah.
My son is here.
It's my boy.
It's my boy. It's my bow tie boy. But yeah, I just have such a warm, fuzzy feeling inside seeing 11 show up because I love him. And I also love the reveal of, what the drum beat in the Master's head actually is and how that ties into the Time Lords. I think that's really good, really clever. So again, that's something that they only ever did for John Sims' incarnation, the whole drum beat thing. So the fact that they kind of really tie it to him and conclude it with him, and you kind of get explanation for why it is. So you could have just attributed it to Night Madness, whatever, him being revived for the Time War. But the fact that there is a given explanation for it, I think adds something to it. So I didn't need him to explain it. I'm like, well, he's just insane, obviously. Some of us just hear things. But the fact that they then gave an explanation for it, and it works really well, and ties up the character and justifies his kind of redemption as well, I think is really well done. So I enjoyed that reveal too.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So yeah, a lot of positives in this episode, but unfortunately there are some negatives. So we'll talk about them now. My first couple, at the very least, are the same as last week. First of all, the Vinvoci.
Right.
They again are useless. Sure, they save the Doctor and transport him to the ship, but as you mentioned, why do they wheel him all away when they could just teleport
and then do it?
The watch?
Very bizarre.
I don't think that's necessary. I think you could have worked your way around it. Maybe the Doctor convinces one of these Master clones to go rogue, and they untie him and whatever. I think that.
Funny you should say that.
I know there was something going because I read the writer's tale. I know there was.
Did you? You haven't mentioned.
Yeah, I know there was. I know there was plans that he would try and do that, or whatever. And I think that would have worked better than having this be a rescue. Mainly because they just get transported to the ship and then they do nothing else.
Their storyline is done once they get out.
Yeah, really. Basically, and they're just two unnecessary characters where you could devote their time to something else, and I think that sort of plays into the fact that maybe End of Time should have been a 90-minute episode rather than two 40, 70, 60-minute episodes, and we've said that about a number of two-parters before. where there's just not quite enough, or there doesn't need to be that much for two-parters. Yeah, I just don't think they're just not interesting, and they're just a bit boring. And yeah, I mean, sure, the makeup looks okay, but ever since you pointed out that green teeth thing last week, I've not been able to not notice it. So
it's all right, because
thank you.
I ruined the Verity Newman scene for myself watching it this time.
Oh dear.
Because she does
She doesn't
not
write on
write
the
in that
paper.
book.
No.
And I've
No,
never noticed
no,
it before.
yeah.
And it's so obviously
Yeah.
a gap. I'm like,
Yeah, I know.
no.
Yeah. I know.
can't believe I never noticed it before. Because I've watched
I
that
know.
scene just on YouTube casually so many times. I've never focused on
Yeah,
it. Oh.
it's ridiculous. But yeah, but at least, at least, I mean, let's talk about unnecessary. That's not really necessary, her being there, but that still serves an emotional purpose, and it still serves a purpose. Whereas the Vinvoce, you could replace them with anything. You could even replace it with the Doctor escaped and they managed to get back to the TARDIS and he's hiding out there while trying to figure out what to do. You could easily do something else, but Russell was adamant to have his tiny spaceship moment, and boy did he have it. So what's your first negative?
Let's have a look. I do think when they like build up to the whole gun thing, him going back and forth, I really like that. I do think it's a massive cop out that he just shoots the machine.
Right.
I'm like, that wasn't even one of the options, David. Like, I think if they maybe built up to that a bit more, it just, I think it's just kind of writing yourself into a corner really, because that's just always going to feel a bit cop outy. Just like, get out of the way. Boom.
Fair enough.
I just obviously you don't really want him to make a choice and shoot either one of them, because it's like, ooh, big oop. But I can never help not feeling a bit like, oh, he just shoots the machine. There you go, back into the time warp. Like, well, if it just built up to you doing that, why has there been all this build up for the past like 3 minutes of tension? So I think because that's like the climactic final decision that he needs to make, really, other than saving Wilf. It's just a bit, okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think for me, I can kind of justify it just because there's a realization that it's like, oh shit, he can get out of it. He doesn't have to compromise himself for doing this. And I think also it's heavily implied that that's what his mum's telling him to do. He's like, yeah, look behind him. You can, there is another way out of this if you look. Basically, that's because that's what I think. It's very subtle, and I could be just reading into it completely wrong, and it might not have been intentional. But there are, she does make eye movements that sort of indicate, turn around and look behind you. And I think he realizes that. John Sim realizes that as well. You can see that more clearly on his face, that he realizes what the Doctor's going to do. And it kind of makes sense, because they do sort of say, oh, this diamond is the bridge, it's a physical link, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of set up. But I can also understand that they make such a big deal out of shooting one or the other that it's then like, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I understand. My sort of second negative, again from last week, Naismiths. I mean, I know they're only in it to go, at the very end.
He's not worthy of that whole ass shot of just his face going, you've done nothing to deserve this.
No, and then you get an off-screen resolution of, yep, they've been arrested. Goodbye. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I know they needed somewhere to go to have this gate and everything like that, but it just feels a bit like they're just spare parts, I think. I mean, I don't know how else you'd do it. Maybe just say that the Master found this abandoned Torchwood base, because they reference that this was Torchwood tech and they've got it from Torchwood, whatever. So just say the Master found this abandoned Torchwood base and he took over and he was working on all this, do something like that. I think is more interesting than it being just, these are rich people that wanna live, and then they're gone for the whole episode. Then they come back, they kneel before the Time Lords, and then they run outside when Gallifrey arrives, and that's it. I just think they're just a bit spare party. Same with the Vinvoce, they're just not needed. You could have written around them to make it a little bit more concise, but again, they're not like, oh my god, they've absolutely ruined this. I can't stand this episode because they're in it, because they're not that bad, but they're just unnecessary, unfortunately. So what's your second negative?
Now, I'm in two minds about it, but I do think it's kind of a shame, especially because they spend all of part one building up like the Master's the villain. This is his plan. This is what he's doing. The fact that it's just all thrown away for the Time Lords, I feel a bit like, he's just like, boom, and undoes. I get like it's to show the power of the Time Lords and like they're the ultimate threat and all that, but when you've made the audience sit through at this point 90 minutes of their time building up this plot just for them to be like, and it's done. And especially when the Titans are then defeated another like 3 or 4 minutes later. It is, I think, a kind of a shame, a bit undermining of the Master coming back just for that, because he's just there to get redeemed, really, for that at that point. So yeah, I understand why they did it that way, and it's a very kind of thing that Doctor Who can do sometimes, and I think these are the bad guys, and then boom, here are the Daleks and kill the Cybermen because Cybermen are weak ass apparently.
Yep.
But at least that had like a whole episode about that. Whereas this was like 4 minutes about it, just for them to also be defeated even easier than the Master was defeated. I think that's kind of a shame.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fair, but I'm more accepting of it because again, it's used to sort of show that you idiot, you thought that you could turn us into them. Don't be so stupid. We're going to turn them back with just a flick of the wrist, and you're out, mate. So I do appreciate it, but I could also see from your point of view that it could be a little bit like, oh, okay, but it's all right. He gets to create his own species again, in 10 years time, something like that.
It's fine.
So he definitely gets to create another race, which probably wasn't controversial at the time. But yeah, I think that's fair enough. Now I know you quite liked the way that the Time Lords sort of came back with the Master's head and stuff, but I'm hitting on your negative point here of it was just too much technobabble. I can never follow it. I can never follow how they've pinpointed the signal for the drums, B, how they locate the diamond, and then C, how the diamond can cause the gateway. I know they explain it in some techno-babbly way, but it just doesn't fit in my head. So I've learned to just be like, okay, sure, that diamond does something. But I couldn't for the life of me figure out what the hell's going on. And I mean, I don't know how else you do it. I don't know what else you kind of do from that other than literally being like, yeah, the doorway's in his head, and maybe that makes it worse. I don't know. But it's fine. It's just a vehicle to get the Time Lords involved in the present day. And they do a sufficient job of explaining it, and it's not the show's fault that it doesn't work in my head. That's my fault, I think. Maybe in the Target novel they'll explain it a little bit better, and I'll be able to see it on paper. They'll do a little diagram to show what on earth is going on.
For Connor.
Basically,
have a whole little diagram for you.
Russell, if you're watching, please explain that. Your first episode back, please explain how that happened.
That's all it is.
But yeah, I think again, it's not something that ruins it, but I think it's mainly because now I've just sort of turned my mind off to it, and I've sort of gone, yeah, fine. It works. It just works, as Todd Howard would say. And so, yeah, I will let it slide, but just the way they come back is a bit convoluted more than anything else. Never mind. So what's your final negative?
The Donna cop-out.
Yeah,
I
was waiting for this one. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that she remembers everything, and then she's just fine. Like, okay, great. That's not what was established in Journey's End. But fine, whatever. I guess she's just fine. She's just gonna, collapse and be knocked out for a bit. I mean, of course, I don't want them to kill off Donna, but just don't have her remember. It's fine. Just have her be transformed. She's not got a big part in it anyway. You might as well just have her transformed to John Sim. So it seems bizarre to me, and just another way of like trying to add some drama, which is ultimately pointless. And I think actually goes against, the tragedy of her ending in season 4, because it turns out she could remember and she's absolutely fine. So put a safety net in. So I'm like, why are you so sad then? So, it's a thing I can, just get over because fine, we're never going to see her again anyway until the 60th anniversary.
Yep. Until she's the 14th Doctor.
Until she's the 14th Doctor, and she's also the companion.
Yeah. Could you imagine? Isn't that a show on Netflix? Isn't that what's going on there?
Oh yeah, yes it is, isn't it? Yeah, of course. Her new prison drama or whatever it is.
It's not a drama.
It's not a drama. No, definitely not a drama. If it is, then I think they've gone about it in the wrong way. But yeah, or maybe Catherine takes the 14th Doctor, and then a companion is her Nan character.
Oh God, could you imagine? That'd be horrible.
Would you like a mint?
No, thank you.
So yeah, it's one of those things that what annoys me about it is that you just didn't need it. You didn't need to actively break the rule that you yourself had set up like 6 episodes ago about it, for no reason really, because it was done to get Donna out of that danger, but you just didn't need to put her in that danger in the first place.
Yeah.
You could have just saved Catherine Tate's time and had her become the Master as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I sort of understand it as he wouldn't want to go around saying there's a safety net, because then it would mean that perhaps Wilf and Sylvia would be less, cautious around her, and then if it happens too many times, maybe it can have an effect or whatever. Maybe it's only a one-time thing. I don't know. But then you can't have her around constantly, the Doctor, still, because then she would just keep knocking people out and passing out, which isn't helpful for anyone. But yeah, I do agree that I think it's just just have her change. Say she's still human and she's, but I guess then it would go across the whole her body is changed, therefore she doesn't match the template on the immortality gate, so therefore she shouldn't change. So if she did change, you probably have people going, oh well, that doesn't make sense because she's not whatever. So I think Russell did kind of be like, wow, I have to write around both the fact that she can't remember and that she can't change. And so I do think this is a good, other than her just being, oh, she slept through the whole thing again, which I think might have been just a ridiculous waste of time, especially with it, in theory, being set on Christmas Day. I think it's.
Although they still just do that joke anyway.
Yeah, I know.
They might as well have just.
Yeah.
Because it's the same endpoint.
Yeah, no, you're not. You are right, but yeah, I just think they just wanted to use Catherine Tate a little bit more if they had her back.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
Well.
So my sort of only sort of additional negative to this, and I messaged you about this as well, is every single time that Alonzi line makes me cringe.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was fine when it came out and I loved it, but it just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry.
It's one of those, like, you watch a big film nowadays and everyone's like, yeah, that bit was so good, and then give it a year and Twitter hates it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But it is cringe. It's very cringy.
Yeah.
Every time.
Especially because like he reached the conclusion with that thing in Voyage of the Damned when he met Alonso, and I think they should have just left it there.
Yeah, it's fair. I think there are probably another moments that will come out with probably during Matt Smith's one where he says Geronimo a couple of times or somewhere, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work as well. There are.
It's the Doctor having a catchphrase. I just don't think it's needed anymore.
Yeah, it can work. It can work every now and then, if it's used sparingly and it's not used in this way. Like Matt Smith's Geronimo works at the end of this episode, and it's great. But as Pete Capaldi doesn't have a catchphrase. Jodie Whittaker doesn't have a catchphrase. It's not necessary. But that was the thing that Doctor Who was known for. It was known for the TARDIS. The Doctor, and every Doctor has its own catchphrase that they can put on the T-shirt.
Yeah. It was a marketing strap more than anything, wasn't it? So you can put it on posters.
Yeah, and I think David Tennant's had a number of those throughout his years, and Alonzi is, I think, the worst one, or at least the one that is most overused. And it's, I think, the internet as well, in the time since, has made it worse. The same with "Don't Blink." I think that whole line has also got a cringy tone to it now, just because of how overused it was in fandom post that. But it's fine, again, it's not something that ruins it. It's just something that every time I go, oh, that's not.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the show's fault per se, but
no, yeah, it's just, it is overused.
Sadly, it's
in time it's just become even more overused outside the show. So have you got any other negative points you want to touch on?
Well, I've already had the fuck you, Liam. Here's another prophecy character that doesn't need to be here. And I also agree about the Naismiths and Navin Bokchi. I think they were just, spare parts, dead weight.
Yeah.
And
I think that's fair. Just let me check over my notes if I got anything else. I don't think so. I think most of my notes are positive. Again, I do like you got some Dr. Flim Flam. That line from Wilf I think is excellent. And it explains a lot. I do think the mysterious woman is played well throughout most of this.
Yeah, I like that.
We don't get a full answer as to who she was, although it's always intended to be the Doctor's mum. And you can still fit that in with the canon now. Maybe this was the Doctor's mum from when he stopped being part of Division and they reset him the final time and put him
a lot.
With their Doctor
I know
family.
One fan thing is in Hellbent, the Doctor runs into that woman in like the bar and he like recognizes him and it's like, you can't be here, blah blah. People think that could be like a future regeneration of her or something, and it's actually like her who looked after him and listened in the bar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I like that there isn't like a definitive answer for it in the episode.
And that's helpful, I think, with Doctor Who canon, when it's got the fact that it can bend to what gets changed, and luckily this one can play into it. There was also other rumours, even Russell's talking about who it might be. It could have been Romana, it could have been the Doctor's daughter itself, could have been, it could have been anyone, and I'm glad that they didn't concrete put that down. But again, there's a Target novel. If it comes out, they could say who it is.
It's a serial killer.
Yeah, probably. Well,
Susan is a serial killer now.
Yeah, well, yeah. Don't think they have anything else. I just really liked the whole episode. I appreciate that I'm never gonna kill anyone. Time will arrive. Guess I'm gonna kill someone.
Yeah, literally the very same scene. Like, ah.
Yeah.
I know it's like, oh shit, it's serious, but it does also come across as quite funny.
Yes. And I think we need to give a shout out to the fact that he crashes through the ceiling. I think it's fine, mainly because he thinks he's going to die anyway. So if he sustained deathly injuries at that point, he would have been fine.
That's what causes regeneration.
Yeah, not the radiation. Yeah, could be. You never know. I think it's fine. But again, if you take out the Vinvoce, you don't have to have that whole chase sequence. You can just have, or you could, but you could have it with the TARDIS. I don't know. He appears between and walks out, whatever. But sure, he's a Time Lord. Let's just say they can fall from great heights and not die. Why not?
Apart from Tom Baker,
they've never done it before. No.
Just the most popular Doctor.
Yeah, he's got more padding this time. That's what happened.
I think that's why people had the issue with it, really. But
it hit the ceiling
I can just say it. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Slow them down. Yeah.
If you hit the ceiling first, you don't die.
No, definitely, especially if you land on a load of glass. But yeah, I think it's fine. I don't think
I can deal with it.
Especially because he dies like 10 minutes later anyway. So
yeah,
it doesn't really matter.
It would have been very funny if he just broken an arm. Until he regenerates, he has a broken arm now.
But yeah, I think that's sort of it for our positives and negatives. Then, have you got some fun facts?
I do. I have plenty actually.
Whoa-hey.
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 Whoa-hey. Let's take a wit then. Anyway, this episode is 3 minutes longer than Voyage of the Damned, making it the longest episode of this era. The only single episodes that run longer are The Five Doctors, the TV movie, and Deep Breath. So there you go.
Oh, is Day of the Doctor not longer then?
No, it's I think it's like 1 minute shorter, I think.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah. Who'd have thought? This is the second time Sontaran has a cameo in a regeneration story following an appearance in Megapolis, which is the fourth Doctor's final story. Goes on to happen again, obviously, in Time of the Doctor, which is your favourite thing in the world.
Yes.
Can't wait to talk about that in like a year. While this is the 10th Doctor's final regular Doctor Who appearance, the final scenes he filmed during his time on the show as the character were for the Sarah Jane Adventures story, The Wedding of Sarah Jane Smith, though the events of that story take place prior to this one.
Obviously. Because it regenerates at the end of this one.
Yes. Don't mock Doctor Who wiki. They work hard. In the Doctor Who confidential episodes for this story, the TARDIS in the title sequence had the St. John Ambulance logo on it, a nod to the 11th Doctor's upcoming model, which is nice. The continuity announcement before the airing of this episode was done by David Tennant in character as the Doctor, which I think is quite a nice touch. Russ T. Davies said in the commentary for part 2 that the scene with Jack in an alien bar takes place in the city Zagat Zago on the planet Zog. This is an in-joke referencing Russell's statement about his approach to the show that, and I quote, "No one cares about Zogs attacking Zogs on the planet Zog." This scene is also a tribute to the famous Star Wars Cantina scene, featuring cameos from multiple species from the era.
Slitheen! Yeah!
Alonzo Frame... Best boys. Alonzo Frame also returns, and the song playing in the bar is Tallulah's You Put the Devil in Me,
yes,
from
the
the
best
Daleks
song.
Manhattan Evolution of the Daleks two-parter. You let me in with your cold grey eyes.
Should have been Song for 10. Bring back. I mean, they did. To be fair, they did have some.
They literally used that.
It's fine. It's fine. But they did use some Song for 10 notes in the end of, when he was seeing Wilf. I think when he dropped him off, there's a little bit in there.
Yes. Yeah, I've got some fun facts about it. It's fine.
Yay!
Russell had plans for how the 10th Doctor would die from the moment David Tennant signed on for the role. He has since implied that if someone else had been cast, he would have killed the 10th Doctor in a different way. So that's interesting. The Master redeeming himself by saving the Doctor, followed by said Doctor's own regeneration, was taken from the original plans for John Pertwee's final story, in which the Roger Delgado's original Master would have sacrificed and redeemed himself to save the third Doctor, followed by the third Doctor's immediate regeneration. The plans were scrapped after Delgado's untimely death in a car accident in Spain. Meant that he could not return, which is very sad. But there you go. They found a way to make it happen decades later.
Yay!
Russell also originally planned to have the Time Lords form an alliance with the Daleks in this story, but after consulting with Stephen Moffat over his Series 5 plans and with Doctor Who magazine writer Benjamin Cook, who wasn't sure the Daleks should appear in yet another finale, eliminated the plot thread, which I think is probably
that's all in the writer's tale, which you can read.
It is. So it's all in the writer's tale. Read it now.
Yep.
Yes. Russell also originally intended for the Doctor to die saving a complete stranger from the radiation chamber, but decided it should be Wilf as the story developed. I think in future I would like to see a Doctor just die for a complete stranger. If I were writing Doctor Who, I think that's how my Doctor would go out.
Yeah.
But I think it made sense with Wilf in this case. During the regeneration scene, the 11th Doctor spits over the console. This was a reaction from Matt Smith to dust from the set falling onto his face. Multiple takes were filmed of the scene, but Russell chose to leave that take in the final cut because he just has a thing for spitting.
I was surprised that it was Russell that got to decide how that scene went into the episode. I would have thought it would have been Moffat because he obviously wrote that last scene.
He wrote that bit, but alas not, I guess.
There you go.
He doesn't get says in the edits until he's probably in charge, I guess.
Clearly not.
The BBC received hundreds of complaints regarding the Doctor's line about still not being ginger, taking it to be him being excited about the fact as opposed to the intentional reference to the 10th Doctor's disappointment and not being ginger. So essentially, there are hundreds of fake fans.
Yep.
Jessica
ginger
Hines.
People just wanted to get annoyed for no reason.
Yeah. They released a statement implying saying the previous main companion was ginger and the next companion is also ginger. Doctor Who does not hate gingers.
Please stop.
I love that they had to release a statement saying that. So there you go.
God.
One day we'll have a ginger Doctor. Maybe
Never.
the next Doctor's ginger.
Never.
What happens if I refuse? Jessica Hines' scene as Verity Newman was the first thing shot for this story, as Hines had been cast in a Broadway play and shooting the sequence had to be moved up. The character's name is a reference to original Who producer Verity Lambert and Who creator Sidney Newman. Director Euros Lynn felt the scene should be cut as it would confuse those who missed the connection she has to the Doctor and the show, but Russell insisted that it stayed in. So they could have done without it, but I like that it's there. I think it's quite sweet. The scene where the Doctor saves Luke Smith is an in-joke to the fact that during the first series of the Sojourn Adventures, none of the younger characters ever looked while crossing the road. I like that was his inspiration for that. The episode commentary highlights that Martha Jones marrying Mickey Smith was a reference to her first episode, Smith and Jones. Very funny. 4 takes of the Doctor's final line were shot, with Tennant getting more emotional each time. The third take was the one used in the final cut of the episode. The fourth take had the Doctor break down in tears completely, but David Tennant felt it was too out of character for the Doctor to not face regeneration bravely.
Yeah, that's fair.
Good choice. Composer Murray Gold wanted to use a reprise of Song for 10 for Rose's cameo as the lead-in to Song for 10 for the regeneration. He argued with producer Julie Gardner over this, as she wanted to use Rose's theme for the cameo, and he ultimately lost the debate, and Rose's theme was used. The reprise was moved up for the scene where the Doctor says goodbye to Rose and leaves to get his reward. So there you go.
Best song that the show has ever created.
Yeah. F in the chat for whatever the music was originally for that scene when he says goodbye to Will, because they just got rid of that, but it's fine. In regards to runtime, this is the second longest regeneration story after the War Games, which is Patrick Troughton's final story. So there you go. And thank God we got the Naismiths and we got the Vinvoce.
That was deserved.
Yes. There was originally a scene where Russell T Davies wanted the Doctor to meet broadcaster Trinity Wells, who had appeared sporadically throughout the era on news reports. The idea was ultimately scrapped as it was deemed too self-indulgent, which is probably fair. There just simply wasn't time with the Naismiths and the Vinvoce. One prominent element scrapped from the episode was the Doctor convincing the copy of the Master that had been Naismith's butler to betray the Master and free him. They just got rid of that. The Slovene in the bar with Jack are costumes made for the Sojourn Adventures rather than the originals from Series 1. After shooting these costumes, they were painted orange for use in the Sojourn Adventure story The Gift as the Blabberine. though that story still ended up airing before this one. So that's what happened to those ones.
Oh, well.
Bring back the Blatherine. I
Bring
want a
them all
Slitheen
back.
versus Blatherine Civil War story.
Slitheen's Civil War. Bring it on.
All of them. Oh god, yes, whole season of that. During filming, David Tennant had the James Bond theme as his ringtone, and Timothy Dalton had the Doctor Who theme as his, which is incredibly wholesome.
That's so 2009.
The wide angles of it really is, isn't it? Changing your ringtone specifically. Yeah, we don't do that anymore. Because my phone's always on vibrate. The wide angles of the TARDIS exploding and falling apart had to be done in one take, as it would be too expensive to redo. So I think that's kind of fair.
Yeah.
Sorry, Stephen, we've taken half your budget for Series 5 because we had to redo this sequence. Hope you understand. Love you, bye. Russell has stated that while open to interpretation, he imagined the mysterious woman in this story to be the Doctor's mother, as we had already discussed. I agree. And then finally, Sarah Jane's cameo in this episode is the final appearance of Elizabeth Sladen in Doctor Who, as she passed away the year after this episode aired. Cool. Very sad times.
Yeah. Oh, what a depressing one to end on, eh?
I know, but I thought Elizabeth deserved it. I thought Elizabeth deserved it, okay?
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yes, mostly fun facts as always. Obviously some depressing ones there.
All right.
But yes, very good.
The truth hurts.
It does. Now, for the final time for a Russell episode, at least for Russell 1.
For now.
What are you rating The End of Time Part 2 out of 10?
What should I go for? You know what? I really enjoyed it. I'll give it an 8.5.
Oh, lovely. Mine's a 9. There you go. So that's, I mean, to be fair, nice. That's only an 8 point. That's only a 0.5 more than last time, and it's actually 0.5 less than Waters of Mars. So there you go. How interesting. But yes, that is it for David Tennant and Russell T Davies on our Doctor Who rewatch. At least for now, this first era. Obviously, David Tennant returns in Day of the Doctor, and Russell will be returning to the show in the future. But it's not the last time we're going to be talking about them, because next week we'll do a sort of, I guess, a mini review of the series, because obviously, although it's not a full series, the specials is still classed as its own separate thing. So we'll review it as a whole. And in that, we'll probably discuss David's run as a whole as well. Which encompasses 5 years-ish, which is quite long for an actor to be in the role for. But yeah, that means after we've discussed that, we are on to Series 5, with Episode 1 of Series 5, the proper introduction of Matt Smith as the 11th Doctor, the 11th Hour. What do you remember / think about the 11th Hour?
I remember being very excited for it because that day, my dad surprised me with a trip to Toys R Us, and we got the 2-pack of the 11th Doctor action figures, and I was very excited. So I just sat there holding them, waiting for the episode to start all day. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. There's always that sense of trepidation. It's like, what if I don't like it?
Yeah.
What if this is it? But every Doctor Who fan ever goes through that. And then you end up loving the Doctors anyway, unless you're a sexist. So I remember really enjoying it. I desperately wanted to try fish fingers and custard after the episode, and to be fair, it's actually quite nice. So yeah, I remember really liking it. I'm excited to kind of revisit it because it's not one I've actually checked out in a while. But I know it's quite well regarded as one of the best kind of first stories for a Doctor. So yeah, it'll be good to revisit the good old days of 2010, 12 years ago on Earth. Such a feeling of nostalgia. So yeah, I'm very excited to get into this era. I really enjoy the Moffat era. And I very much enjoy the 11th Doctor, as has been stated on many occasions. So yeah, it'll be cool to see how the story probably gets kick-started with Amy and Rory getting involved as well, and how it holds up with Prison Zero. Obviously, Olivia Colman.
Oscar winner Olivia Colman.
Future Oscar winner. So continuing themes of Doctor Who, just wasting future stars.
Yeah.
she has a very small role to play in this. It's just
Oh,
so funny. Like Doctor Who can find the stars, but never
yeah.
win their stars.
No, no.
I mean, it's basically Doctor Who can afford, can get them on when they can afford to.
Yeah, basically.
They're like, oh, you're going to be a star one day, but you're going to be in this now because that's all we can afford. But yeah, I'm really excited to check it out. I remember very fondly watching it and enjoying it. So I'm looking forward to revisiting it.
Yep, I think that's fair. It's been a long time since I've seen most of Series 5. I'm quite looking forward to rewatching it and seeing how my opinions... Because I think I remember I enjoyed most series of Doctor Who. There will be some duds, because there are always some duds in every series of the show. But I remember the 11th hour being... I don't know how I reacted at the time, but I have grown significantly on it since.
You've grown as a person.
I've grown.
Since then.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. And I do think it is probably one of the best Doctor introductions, best series openers of the show. We will see if I still think that at the end. We'll see if it could be too long. We'll see how well the CGI holds up.
You'll find something, don't worry.
I'm sure, because obviously there's there is quite a bit of CGI in this one with Prisoner Zero and the Atraxi. I think straight away we're gonna see the new style of the show. I think it definitely changes. It changes not necessarily tone, but it changes like the way it looks immediately. I think
you can tell it's a new production team for sure.
Yes, and I will be interested to see how we go. I am really looking forward to it. To be fair, I do like the cast. Matt Smith's great. Karen Gillan's great. Arthur Darvill is great. So hopefully they remain great, and we don't have Hopefully we have more negatives to positives than positives to negatives.
Hopefully we have more Doctor's daughters than 42s.
Yes, exactly.
In my case.
Yeah. But we will see. That'll be in a couple of weeks' time. In the meantime, we'll obviously have a review of the whole specials out next week, and we'll be doing more discussion videos here and there. Again, the 14th Doctor announcement is due any day now. Any day now. I've been saying that. I have been saying that for weeks. We don't have time to record tonight if it's tonight. There's no time. It won't be. Please tell me they haven't done it. If they've done it, I will cry.
So just like, I was like, oh, God, it's a new tweet, but it's just a Doctor Who redacted thing.
Oh God, thank God.
Oh my God. They've mad men. They've actually done it.
Absolute mad lads. They've cast Danny Dyer. But yes, we will be discussing all things Doctor Who moving forwards here. So by all means, stick around, check him out. Check out Liam's channel. He does plenty of other things. I'm sure you will be able to find something on there you enjoy. I mean, there's also links on this channel to his videos where we've done other. You can find it. You know how to work YouTube. With that, we will be back at some point in the near future with more hashtag content. Goodbye.
Bye.